Hello. So I'm here to talk about the effectiveness of unit planning. The unit that I was able to sit on was a lesson done by my school's fifth grade teacher. She's the ELA teacher, and she did a unit on the civil rights era, and more so not just the era itself, but how it was affected, like how it affected education. So for her fifth graders, the lesson that I specifically sat in on, they were talking about the Little Rock Nine, which were at the time a group of nine teenagers who were chosen to go to a at the time all white school, but had just been desegregated, and they watched the video, they read the articles, and they basically followed their journey through the school. And not only that, but how they personally interacted with each other and other students and teachers that were in the building. And this was the last lesson that they did, but the ones that preceded that, they also learned about Ruby Bridges. They also learned about the Education Act of 1964, Thurgood Marshall and his impact on all of that, and just overall how it changed for African Americans, because the majority of these kids are African American. And what I liked about her lessons are that she gives a lot of personal intake. So her kids have a very good rapport with her. So when she talks, you see that they're all fully engaged, they're all listening, and she allows a lot of time for them to give their own feedback. So at the time of me sitting in, they were just finishing up watching a documentary that had been done on the Little Rock Nine, and it was interesting. They had watched the documentary, they had seen that movie, and they were now watching. They actually had them all on Oprah. Oprah had a reunion for them, and one of the girls in particular had a friendship with a Caucasian girl, and something had happened and they no longer spoke. So this was their first time coming back together after the entire incident, and just to see them as an adult, now they're in like their 40s, 50s, some of them are in their 60s. To see them as an adult, hearing their testimonies of just how detached they were from like the outside events. Like to them, they were just going to school. They didn't really understand the massive impact that it had on the world in terms of the education system. And so for her class to assess and to just give feedback on the lesson itself and what they had learned, she had them watch the documentary portion. And with the specific lady that I'm talking about, she watched it up to a certain point and then she stopped it. And she asked them on the paper, on one of the questions, do you believe that she should forgive her for the discretion that happened? And the kids had to write out basically a full essay as to why they believed either she should forgive her or she shouldn't forgive her. So at the time, I was just assisting. So I would walk around just helping them, make sure that their essays were formatted correctly. But I was also taking the time to read their responses. And for some of them, they had, in their minds, like, no, I wouldn't forgive her. But the reasons behind why they said this, it was very profound because they don't normally share these types of thoughts. So when they all came back as a discussion to share their thoughts, it was very interesting to see how overall the class felt. And majority of them said they wouldn't forgive her. Now, when they watched the video, she in fact did forgive the lady. And a lot of them were surprised. And the one thing that I found to be the most effective about her overall unit was there was one particular child who had, I guess, gone home and discussed what she was learning with her parents. And when she came back, she asked the question, did all of these things really take place? Now, for us who are older, we know, of course, they took place, but because they're not exposed to this history, in their mind, it's just stuff they read in a book. So to see the photos, she showed them tons of photos of the protests and the fire hydrants and the dogs and the police and the gas bombs and all that other stuff that happened. They got to not only read about it, but they got to see it. So to give them the multi-layer of exposure along with the video, I think it really hit home with them because they can relate, as in terms of like these were little black kids who went to school, were trying to go to school, and I'm a little black kid who's trying to go to school, and we're all trying to learn. And I think for some, maybe not all, but for some, they really took it, they internalized it, and was able to understand that education might be more important than I think it is. And I say that it's effective again because even with the kids who don't usually pay attention and don't usually focus, who are always bouncing around and doing other things, they were even engaged enough to give a formal response to the material that they were learning. So I personally think that it was effective. Um, I do believe that with she did give another form of an assessment, but at the time that was I guess, her version of a summative assessment for just that end of that lesson in particular, not so much the overall unit. In terms of her planning, I know she plans her, that was one of the lessons that were given to her by the district. So in terms of planning, it was basically already laid out for her. But I know she incorporated other things within it to expand it because they did this late. They're her homeroom teacher, so of course they see her 5 days a week. But each lesson, she broke it down, and each topic and each event, she broke it down and made that its own mini unit. So it expanded the overall unit longer, but each mini unit, they got to go into detail about each event. So the ACT had its own little mini unit, Little Rock Now had its own mini unit, Ruby Bridges had its own little mini unit. So they thoroughly got to learn about the overall history of the event. So she was able to combine that with her ELA standards for them just learning how to write and formulate their responses in a way that can be understood by people who are reading it. So I personally overall liked it. I hope that for me in the future, I can plan that well, because right now, I don't think I fully think about the end result. And I see how she plans. She always thinks of the end first and then works her way backwards. And I felt that is probably going to be my best method of planning in the future. I just have to sit there and really figure out how to get to the end. Like, you see it, but what steps are going to get them there? And that is where my struggles lie the most. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Another thing for my assessments, I think, even with working backwards, I think my pre-assessments will dictate how I get to the end, because I've noticed a lot of times I'll have an end result, I'll have what I want, and then they'll test, and then it's like, oh, we've hit a snag because we need to know this to get to here, but we don't know it, so we got to detour. And that is where I get the most frustrated, because when you detour, it just takes so long to get back on the path that you already had intended. But it is what it is. But I will say, I enjoyed her lesson. I love history, so that was a plus. And it was something I already knew about. So I got to, learn some more. And I didn't even know there was a documentary, nor did I know they went on Oprah. So me personally, I went back and watched it because I had missed parts of it. But it was still engaging. And I really think the kids took away from it. And at least some of them, went and learned more about it. And they seemed like they want to know more, which is always a good thing.